Void.net. The Gods of Pegana by Lord Dunsany. Part 3. Read by The Voice Before the Void. The Revolt of the Home Gods. There be 3 broad rivers of the plain, born before memory or fable, whose mothers are 3 grey peaks, and whose father was the storm. Their names be Imes, Zanes, and Zagastrian. And Imes is the joy of lowing herds, and Zanes hath bowed his neck to the yoke of man, and carries the timber from the forest far up below the mountain. And Zagastrian sings old songs to shepherd boys, singing of his childhood in a lone ravine, and how he once sprang down the mountain sides and far away into the plain to see the world, and of how one day at last he will find the sea. These be the rivers of the plain, wherein the plain rejoices. But old men tell, whose fathers heard it from the ancients, how once the lords of the 3 rivers of the plain rebelled against the law of the worlds, and passed beyond their boundaries, and joined together, and whelmed cities and slew men, saying, We now play the game of the gods, and slay men for our pleasure, and we be greater than the gods of Pegana. And all the plain was flooded to the hills. And Imes, Zanes, and Zagastrian sat upon the mountains, and spread their hands over their rivers that rebelled by their command. But the prayer of men going upward found Pegana, and cried in the ear of the gods, There be 3 home gods who slay us for their pleasure, and say that they be mightier than Pegana's gods, and they play their game with men. Then were all the gods of Pegana very wroth, but they could not whelm the lords of the 3 rivers, because being home gods, though small, they were immortal. And still the home gods spread their hands across their rivers, with their fingers wide apart, and the waters rose and rose, and the voice of their torrent grew louder, crying, Are we not Imes, Zanes, and Zagastrian? Then Mung went down into the waste of Afric, and came upon the drought Umbul, as he sat in the desert upon iron rocks, clawing with miserly grasp at the bones of men, and breathing hot. And Mung stood before him as his dry sides heaved, and ever as they sank his hot breath blasted dry sticks and bones. Then Mung said, Friend of Mung, go thou and grin before the faces of Imes, Zanes, and Zagastrian, till they see whether it be wise to rebel against the gods of Pegana. And Umbul answered, I am the beast of Mung. And Umbul came and crouched upon a hill upon the other side of the waters, and grinned across them at the rebellious home gods. And whenever Imes, Zanes, and Zagastrian stretched out their hands over their rivers, they saw before their faces the grinning of Umbul, and because the grinning was like death in a hot and hideous land, therefore they turned away and spread their hands no more over their rivers, and the waters sank and sank. But when Umbul had grinned for 30 days, the waters fell back into the river beds, and the lords of the rivers slunk away back again to their homes. Still Umbul sat and grinned. Then Imes sought to hide himself in a great pool beneath a rock, and Zanes crept into the middle of a wood, and Zagastrian lay and panted on the sand. Still Umbul sat and grinned. And Imes grew lean, and was forgotten, so that the men of the plain would say, Here once was Imes. And Zanes scarce had strength to lead his river to the sea. And as Zagastrian lay and panted, a man stepped over his stream, and Zagastrian said, It is the foot of a man that has passed across my neck, and I have sought to be greater than the gods of Pegana. Then said the gods of Pegana, It is enough. We are the gods of Pegana, and none are equal. Then Mung sent Umbul back to his waste in Afric, to breathe again upon the rocks, and parch the desert, and to sear the memory of Afric into the brains of all who ever bring their bones away. And Imes, Zanes, and Segastrian sang again, and walked once more in their accustomed haunts, and played the game of life and death with fishes and frogs, but never essayed to play it any more with men, as do the gods of Pegana. Of Derojend, whose eyes regard the end. Sitting above the lives of the people and looking, doth Derojend see that which is to be. The god of destiny is Derojend. Upon whom have looked the eyes of Derojend, he goeth forward to an end that naught may stay. He becometh the arrow from the bow of Derojend, hurled forward at a mark he may not see, to the goal of Derojend. Beyond the thinking of men, beyond the sight of all the other gods, regard the eyes of Derojend. He hath chosen his slaves, and them doth the destiny god drive onward where he will, who, knowing not whither nor even knowing why, feel only his scourge behind them, or hear his cry before. There is something that Derojend would fain achieve, and, therefore, hath he set the people striving, with none to cease or rest in all the worlds. But the gods of Pegana, speaking to the gods, say, what is it that Derojend would fain achieve? It hath been written and said that not only the destinies of men are the care of Derojend, but that even the gods of Pegana are not unconcerned by his will. All the gods of Pegana have felt a fear, for they have seen a look in the eyes of Derojend that regardeth beyond the gods. The reason and purpose of the worlds is that there should be life upon the worlds, and life is the instrument of Derojend wherewith he would achieve his end. Therefore the worlds go on, and the rivers run to the sea, and life ariseth and flieth even in all the worlds, and the gods of Pegana do the work of the gods, and all for Derojend. But when the end of Derojend hath been achieved, there will be need no longer of life upon the worlds, nor any more a game for the small gods to play. Then will Kib tiptoe gently across Pegana to the resting place in highest Pegana of Mana Yud Sushai, and touching reverently his hand, the hand that wrought the gods, say, Mana Yud Sushai, thou hast rested long. And Mana Yud Sushai shall say, not so, for I have rested for but 50 eons of the gods, each of them scarce more than 10 million mortal years of the worlds that ye have made. And then shall the gods be afraid when they find that Mana knoweth that they have made worlds while he rested. And they shall answer, nay, but the worlds came all of themselves. Then Mana Yud Sushai, as one who would have done with an irksome matter, will lightly wave his hand, the hand that wrought the gods, and there shall be gods no more. When there shall be 3 moons towards the north above the star of the abiding, 3 moons that neither wax nor wane but regard towards the north. Or when the comet ceaseth from his seeking and stands still, not any longer moving among the worlds, but tarrying as one who rests after the end of search, then shall arise from resting, because it is the end, the greater one, who rested of old time, even Mana Yud Sushai. Then shall the times that were be times no more, and it may be that the old dead days shall return from beyond the rim, and we who have wept for them shall see those days again, as one who, returning from long travel to his home, comes suddenly on dear, remembered things. For none shall know of Mana who hath rested for so long, whether he be a harsh or merciful God. It may be that he shall have mercy, and that these things shall be. The Eye in the Waste. There lie 7 deserts beyond Bodrahan, which is the city of the caravan's end, none goeth beyond. In the first desert lie the tracks of mighty travelers outward from Bodrahan, and some returning. And in the second lie only outward tracks, and none return. The third is a desert untrodden by the feet of men. The fourth is the desert of sand, and the fifth is the desert of dust, and the sixth is the desert of stones, and the seventh is the desert of deserts. In the midst of the last of the deserts that lie beyond Bodrahan, in the center of the desert of deserts, standeth the image that hath been hewn of old out of the living hill, whose name is Ranarada, the eye in the waste. About the base of Ranarada is carved in mystic letters that are vaster than the beds of streams these words: To the God who knows. Now, beyond the second desert are no tracks, and there is no water in all the 7 deserts that lie beyond Bodrahan. Therefore came no man thither to hew that statue from the living hills, and Ranarada was wrought by the hands of gods. Men tell in Bodrahan, where the caravans end, and all the drivers of the camels rest, how once the gods hewed Ranarada from the living hill, hammering all night long beyond the deserts. Moreover, they say that Ranarada is carved in the likeness of the god Hudrazai, who hath found the secret of Mana Yud Sushai, and knoweth the wherefore of the making of the gods. They say that Hudrazai stands all alone in Pegana, and speaks to none because he knows what is hidden from the gods. Therefore the gods have made his image in a lonely land, as one who thinks and is silent, the eye in the waste. They say that Hudrazai had heard the murmurs of Mana Yud Sushai as he muttered to himself, and gleaned the meaning, and knew, and that he was the god of mirth and of abundant joy, but became, from the moment of his knowing, a mirthless god, even as his image, which regards the deserts beyond the track of men. But the camel drivers, as they sit and listen to the tales of the old men in the marketplace of Bodrahan at evening while the camels rest, say, If Hudrazai is so very wise and yet is sad, let us drink wine, and banish wisdom to the wastes that lie beyond Bodrahan. Therefore is there feasting and laughter all night long in the city where the caravans end. All this the camel drivers tell when the caravans come in from Bodrahan. But who shall credit tales that camel drivers have heard from aged men in so remote a city? Of the thing that is neither god nor beast. Seeing that wisdom is not in cities, nor happiness in wisdom, and because Yadin the prophet was doomed by the gods ere he was born to go in search of wisdom, he followed the caravans to Bodrahan. There in the evening, where the camels rest, when the wind of the day ebbs out into the desert, sighing amid the palms its last farewells and leaving the caravans still, he sent his prayer with the wind to drift into the desert, calling to Hudrazai. And down the wind his prayer went calling, Why do the gods endure, and play their game with men? Why doth not Skarl forsake his drumming, and Mana cease to rest? And the echo of 7 deserts answered, Who knows? Who knows? But out in the waste, beyond the 7 deserts where Ranarada looms enormous in the dusk, at evening his prayer was heard. And from the rim of the waste whither had gone his prayer, came 3 flamingos flying, and their voices said, going south, at every stroke of their wings. But as they passed by the prophet, they seemed so cool and free, and the desert so blinding and hot, that he stretched up his arms towards them. Then it seemed happy to fly and pleasant to follow behind great white wings, and he was with the 3 flamingos up in the cool above the desert, and their voices cried before him, "Going south, going south." And the desert below him mumbled, "Who knows? Who knows?" Sometimes the earth stretched up towards them with peaks of mountains. Sometimes it fell away in steep ravines. Blue rivers sang to them as they passed above them, or very faintly came the song of breezes in lone orchards, and far away the sea sang mighty dirges of old forsaken isles. But it seemed that in all the world there was nothing only to be going south. It seemed that somewhere the south was calling to her own, and that they were going south. But when the prophet saw that they had passed above the edge of earth, and that far away to the north of them lay the moon, he perceived that he was following no mortal birds, but some strange messengers of Hudrazai, whose nest had lain in one of Pegana's vales below the mountains whereon sit the gods. Still they went south, passing by all the worlds, and leaving them to the north, till only Araxes, Zadres, and Hyraglion still lay to the south of them, where great Ingazi seemed only a point of light, and Io and Mindo could be seen no more. Still they went south till they passed below the south, and came to the rim of the worlds. There is neither south, nor east, nor west, but only north and beyond. There is only north of it where lie the worlds, and beyond it where lies the silence. And the rim is a mass of rocks that were never used by the gods when they made the worlds. And on it sat Trogul. Trogul is the thing that is neither god nor beast, who neither howls nor breathes. Only it turns over the leaves of a great book, black and white, forever until the end. And all that is to be is written in the book, is also all that was. When it turneth a black page, it is night, and when it turneth a white page, it is day. Because it is written that there are gods, there are gods. Also there is writing about thee and me until the page where our names no more are written. Then as the prophet watched it, Trogul turned a page, a black one, and night was over, and day shone on the worlds. Trogul is the thing that men in many countries have called by many names. It is the thing that sits behind the gods, whose book is the scheme of things. But when Yadin saw that old remembered days were hidden away with the part that it had turned, and knew that upon one whose name is writ no more the last page had turned for ever 1,000 pages back, then did he utter his prayer in the fact of Trogul, who only turns the pages and never answers prayer. He prayed in the face of Trogul, "Only turn back thy pages to the name of one which is writ no more. And far away upon a place named Earth shall rise the prayers of a little people that acclaim the name of Trogul, for there is indeed far off a place called Earth, where men shall pray to Trogul." Then spake Trogul, who turns the pages and never answers prayer, and his voice was like the murmurs of the waste at night when echoes have been lost. Though the whirlwind of the south should tug with his claws at a page that hath been turned, yet shall he not be able to ever turn it back. Then, because of words in the book that said that it should be so, Yadin found himself lying in the desert where one gave him water, and afterwards carried him on a camel into Bodrahan. There some said that he had but dreamed when thirst seized him, while he wandered among the rocks in the desert. But certain aged men of Bodrahan say that indeed there sitteth somewhere a thing that is called Trogul, that is neither god nor beast, that turneth the leaves of a book, black and white, until he comes to the words, "My Dun Izan," which means, "the end forever," and book and gods and worlds shall be no more. Continued in Part 4.